Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd show you something a little bit crafty with these 5 different Christmas card designs. Now I'm going to give you a step-by-step tutorial of how to do each one of these. Some of the little things are going to be sped up just so this video is not too long. Also, please feel free to pause and play this video whenever you feel the need to, so you can keep up, because I will be speeding parts of this video up. So I'm going to start out by using some craft card. I'm using brown card because I think it looks really nice when you make it into a Christmas cardy design. And this is just A4 card, and you just want to mark it down the middle. I think it works out at 14.8 centimeters down the center, and I'm just using a craft knife there, but you can also use scissors like this. I tried to make this video as inclusive as possible. All the materials are available at local craft stores. I just went to the range and picked up everything there because, my gosh, that store has everything. Here I'm just using the other bit of card that I cut earlier to cut down the other side and mark it out, because I like to cut corners, and that pun was not intentional. So I like to just make things as easy as possible. And here I'm just bending the card in half, which is a really easy way to do it, or you can measure it with the ruler. When I do cut it in half, it doesn't really create a flat edge, which I don't really like that much, but you can kind of scrape it down with a ruler or the scissors that you used. I much prefer this way of doing it, so you just basically cut it down the middle again, but you just score it, so don't go all the way through. Obviously, if you're doing this with children, you really want to do it this way because it is a little bit more dangerous. I've got a metal scale ruler that I've had for ages, so you can't really cut with a craft knife with a plastic ruler because it could get through and you could end up hurting yourself. So don't do that, please. So basically I just end up with 6 bits of card that have been cut up into A6 card shapes. So I'm just going to use these as a base to show you through the rest of the tutorial. So for the first card, we're going to be making this little striped candy cane design. It's really simple to do, and you can actually do this with loads of different styles. I just decided to do a candy cane because it's kind of cute and Christmassy, and it kind of stands out on the card as well. So I just went ahead and drew this sort of cane-like shape. It really doesn't have to be accurate at all because you're going to be cutting this out anyway. I just did a few of these so I could use them on different cards. The idea with these cards is that it's easier to do a few rather than just a couple, which is what I'm actually doing. So if you do it in the long run, it takes less time. So this bit that I'm showing you is actually quite important. It's going to mean that when you take the masking tape off, it does not rip. And this is masking tape that I have, and it's really good for blotting out watercolour, pencil or anything. So I'm basically just going to put this on the card where I don't want any of the colour to come through onto the page. So I'm just going ahead here and sticking it on to the candy cane outline. It does not have to be neat at all. I think the idea of these cards is that they look kind of rustic and nice and homemade. For the first candy cane design, I'm using a red watercolour paint. I decided to go with a few different options in terms of media. So I used a red watercolour paint, some pencil and a felt tip, just to see which one would work best. So here I'm just going in with the colour pencil, and I'm just going to say this now, the watercolour paint did work the best. I don't want to discourage you if you don't have any watercolour paints, because this kind of watercolour paint is so readily available in any store, or you can get it on Amazon, and it's really cheap, so it's definitely worth getting it. I think the felt tip one works surprisingly well, considering the felt tips that I have are from Wish and they bleed into the paper quite a lot, and the masking tapes seem to catch most of this. I don't know why I keep buying really cheap art materials, but I am just a bit of a sucker for getting cheap art materials for some reason. I don't know why, but most of the time they work really well. So you just want to go and use some scissors, or you can use a craft knife. I don't trust myself cutting round things with a craft knife, so I use some scissors. So now that you're left with these 4 little nicely shaped candy canes, you can then start to arrange them on your cards. You can just pretty much do anything you like, really. I just played around here before I stuck them down, and I just decided that 2 was quite nice. I think 1 looks quite nice as well, but really it's up to your artistic license on this one. So I'm just using some good old Pritt stick to stick these down. You can use whatever glue you like. I don't recommend using a wet glue like PVA, because that can make the card go wavy, because it can absorb too much moisture, and that does not look good. I tried that in a trial run of this and the cards did not look great. So that is the first card, and I hope you like it, and we are swiftly moving on to the second card, which is this kind of like cut out Santa-y looking thing. Which I thought was quite cute, and it is really easy to make. First of all, to create the background of this card, you're going to want to take some red paper. This is just wrapping paper, and it's the sort of wrapping paper that has the squares on the back, which makes it really easy when you're crafting, and it means you're less likely to mess up. So I'm just marking on this piece of paper to where I'd like it to go on the card, which means it will be more accurate. And then I'm just cutting along the side of the squares. So once you've got your little bit of paper, you want to find out where you really want it to go on your piece of cards, and then I usually take some double-sided sticky tape and I use that to just stick it on the back there, because it means you're less likely to get creases. And you can use glue if you like, but most of the time when you're using something so thin as paper, it ends up bloating with the moisture, which never looks good. So if you do have some double-sided sticky tape, stick to that. I don't know where these pens are coming from today, but I'm not a fan of them. So once you've got your background sorted, you're going to want to move on to the filling. So I've just got some A4 printer paper here. It's obviously white, but you can use any paper. You can use cartridge paper. I chose to use this one because it's just easier to cut out when you're cutting multiple layers. So you just want to draw out a really simple design here. So I'm just doing a really simple Santa hat. You can even go online and trace these out if you like. The important thing here as well is that before I drew this out, I folded an A4 piece of paper into 4 segments. So you just want to do this so when you're cutting out, you can have multiple objects at the same time. This one can be a little bit fiddly, but if you just keep at it, it'll be over before you know it. And I actually kind of find cutting quite therapeutic in a way. And when it comes to arranging them and sticking them down, I chose to use Pritt stick on this one. Because they're such fiddly shapes, I really didn't want to be getting the double-sided sticky tape out for this, and they're so small. And Pritt stick is pretty good for... Pritt stick is very good for not making things bubble too much, especially if the surface area of the paper is quite small, which this is, fortunately. So you just want to go ahead and stick these down until you have something that you're happy with. And I think this one is kind of cool. I think it's one of my favourite ones. It's kind of like a hipster Santa, with that moustache that's going on there. The next one that we are going to make is going to be kind of this cosmic-y bauble design. Be careful if you're doing something like this and using a hot candle to measure out a circle, but that's what you need to do. So just take some white watercolour paper. It's quite important that it is watercolour paper. I will show you in the description which one I use, and you just want to cover that in water basically, because the water is going to be doing most of the work on this one. You want to pick some colours. I decided to do these galaxy style colours because I always think they look really pretty when they are smudged into water like this. But you can do more Christmassy colours like red and green. I don't know, what are the other Christmas colours other than red and green? Gold, but I don't really have any gold watercolour paints. Anyway, you just need to get these going like this, and this is really fun, and you can just kind of swirl them around together until you have something that you're happy with. So once that's all dry, as you can see, you just want to cut it quite close to the design down both vertical sides. And once you've done this, you just need to trim down the other sides, because this is going to be slotting inside of your card, kind of like this. So you're going to need to go back and grab that candle or whatever you're using. You could just use some tape and not be weird like me, and not burn yourself at the same time. And you're just going to need to go around that and use it as a template again, because we're going to be cutting this out. So I just use the scissors to go in and cut this out. If you ever are cutting out of the middle of something, you've got to be quite careful. I tend to just pinch it in the middle a little bit and make that incision, and then kind of create a larger hole in the middle, so it's just easier to get round the circumference of the circle. And then once you're in there, you kind of got it. And you just kind of want to be really careful with this. If you're not cutting on the line, you want to be cutting on the inside rather than the outside of the line, because the painting that you've done is only as big as this circle, and you don't really want to be having any white lines around the outside of the bauble. So once this is cut out, you just want to go and rub out the pencil lines, or if you're a bit smarter than me, you could not have to rub out the pencil lines and just fold your card the other way and hide everything behind. Next thing you're going to do is just place the bauble behind the cards, and to do this I'm going to use some double-sided sticky tape. And I place it on the actual card rather than the painting bit, because it's just more accurate this way. Now this is a tricky bit of trying to place your painting behind the card itself. I mean, it doesn't have to be super accurate, because if you've cut on the inside of the lines anyway, this is going to fit in perfectly. And the nice thing about the tape is that it's not going to dry out, and you can take as long as you like trying to fit this in. And now I'm pretty happy with this, but I don't like the way that the inside of it looks like this. So I'm gonna have to get something to cover that up. Also, I'm just gonna address the terrible fake tan situation I have going on my hand. For some reason, I'm 23 and I still haven't worked out how to put fake tan on. So if anyone was wondering what that was, well, now you know. So I can only apologise for that. So going back into this, I just measure out the sides by eye, but also using the inseam of the card, and then I'm just going to take the ruler and just cut down that. You can make a line and use the scissors if you like, but it's me being lazy again, and I don't make lines, I just cut them out, because I'm a rebel. And just use some double-sided sticky tape to stick that down. Once that's all stuck down, now you want to be making a little incision just above the card itself. Now this is pretty dangerous, so you can use a cocktail stick or something like that. You can actually do this step before you stick the card to the back. This is something that I did realise. So before you stick the card to the back of the painting, just make this incision and thread your string through, because I made life difficult for myself here. So I'm just taking about 5 centimetres of string here, and I'm just threading that through, and I'm going to thread it through on both sides so I create a loop, and this is going to be the string for my bauble. So this one is pretty much done now. I just want to stick that side down there where it's come away, and I'm quite happy with this. I think it's quite a neat little design for something that's handmade. For the next one, we're going to be making a little Christmas wreath. This one is a very similar style to the last one we just did, because it is using watercolour, and I'm using the water to sort of frame where the paint goes. So I'm just cutting, I think I cut about a 9 centimetre, 8 or 9 centimetre square here. But basically all you need is a square, or whatever shape you like really. And then here I'm just going in with some water, and I'm doing the exact same thing as I did before, only this time I'm leaving a little hole in the middle for the hole in the wreath. And I just can't stress how easy and simple this way of painting is. Literally anyone can give it a go. Even if you don't want to make any Christmas cards, you just need to give this style of painting a go. It's just so expressive for watercolours, and it makes things look really good without even trying. Once you have your watercolour concoction here, you just want to position it on the card, and I think this looks really nice if you mount it using another bit of card. I did deliberate whether to use black or white card, but I ended up going with white because I thought the black would be a little bit too much. I don't know, what do you think? Another thing with this, if you have more time than me, is that you should leave this to dry before you start modelling with it. However, I was pretty pushed for time at this point because I ended up filming this for about an hour and a half, which is quite a long time, but I was still figuring things out in the process, so hopefully it won't take you this long. I don't want to put you off making these cards. So for the mounting of the card, you just want to use a bit of paper that's just slightly bigger than the one that you used to paint on. I think this is one of the most simple but effective ones of them all, because it really didn't take long at all, and you could just do these in bulk, and it is really effective, I think. I think the hardest thing that I found with this one was actually writing Merry Christmas at the bottom. I just used a gold gel pen to do it, but my writing is not the best writing. I always find that if you use a pretty pen, it always makes it look nicer. And then finally, to put this all together, I'm just using some good old Pritt stick. I was trying so hard here not to put my finger directly in the paint, but I actually think, yeah, I definitely ended up getting some on myself because there's some on the brown cup there. And that is that one finished. And so moving on to the last one, this is actually going to be a really quick one. Originally I'd thought of using a potato to do this, but really didn't want to waste it, and also the thought of cutting into a potato kind of freaked me out a little bit, and I didn't want to look at the cards and think of me cutting the potato. Anyway, I decided to use a little bit of the waste brown card that I had, and I just drew a really simple triangular Christmas tree like this. So basically just drew 3 triangles on top of each other. It's one of the easiest things to draw. And then you can just go ahead and cut that out. And you want to do this twice, so you can use the original to trace round some new card and then you'll have the same shape twice, or you can do what I did previously with the Santa card and cut 2 pieces out. Now what this is going to do is increase the rigidity of the card, so you're going to have a stamp that's a little bit firmer than if you were just to use 1 piece of card, and it means that you'll probably be able to use it more than 1 time, which is good. Now to create the handle on this, I just took a little bit of the excess card and rolled it with the Pritt stick to stick it all together. I think this has to be one of the most makeshift stamps I've ever seen, but I just also wanted to show you that you can make a stamp out of anything and you can make a card no matter what you've got in. Also, feel free to try this with a potato and send me it on Instagram if you do, because I'd love to see that. You can find me on Instagram at Susanna Jane Art, and I'll link that in the description below. So what I'm doing here is just cutting up some card to create some supports for the little handle that I've made. So I'm basically just going to stick that on with some more card, if you can kind of see what I'm doing. I then go in to support that with some masking tape as well. It's not really a permanent kind of stamp that I'm making here, but it's one that will do. So the next step in this card making is to create the evergreeny green. I wanted to create quite a dark foresty green. I unfortunately actually didn't have any green in, so I just mixed these 2 primary colours together to create the perfect colour. And this is me not being lazy for a change. I could have just bought some green paint. And then you want to use the stamp to dip it into the green paint. And you want to kind of get an even coating and also do a trial run before you do it, because something like this will happen on your first run. Yeah, that's not very good. So on the next trial we hope it's going to be a different story, but I think I just went straight into the card. Oh no, here's me practicing again. So I'm just testing out new things because I noticed how it didn't pick up the ends. So I'm pretty happy with that. And now I'm just going to reload it with paint and try it for the real thing. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I'm actually quite happy with this. I think this is definitely the most simple card that I create on this tutorial, but it is quite effective. I think I prefer it when it is decorated, so I do go back in with some gold paint and decorate, because it just adds a little something, and nobody really has a Christmas tree without decorations on it, so it just adds a different dynamic. The great thing about this one is that you can just blast so many of these out in one go. So I try it on a dark piece of card as well, and this looks really nice with the gold paint too. But you could do it on red card, gold card, any card you like. So this is me pretty much done and arranging them now, and I'm actually quite impressed with these. So This was a second attempt. I did try it previously, but you don't even want to see my first attempts because they were pretty tragic, but I didn't have a tutorial to watch, so I'm sure if you do decide to make these cards and I haven't made it look too hard, they will be a lot better than my first attempts. Anyway, I really like these and I hope you do go on to make them, and I hope you enjoyed this video and that it wasn't too long, but I think it's just nice in winter just to sit down and watch a crafty YouTube video, and that is kind of where I got my inspiration from. So I really hope you like this video and give it a thumbs up if you like it, and also if you would like to see more of me and more of these videos, then definitely give me a subscribe and I'd like to create more. So thanks for watching and I will see you soon.